me hide my controls. Yep. Okay. Welcome to our second chapter meeting for spring 21. And this is our official officer team. We did elections in the last meeting. So as follows: Amanda Jackson, President, tis I, and then Joshua Robledo, Cezanne Lawson-Can, Annalisa Martinez, Matthew Johnson, Courtney Velasquez, Seth Ross, and Kiana Bertle. And our February calendar. This is also posted to the Canvas page. And if any of you are not on the Canvas page, even though you found the Zoom link through there, if any of you aren't, let me know after the meeting and I will add you, and then you can see this calendar live along with all of the signups that are posted to this calendar as well for events. So 10th, here we are today. This weekend it's tentative. If any of you have been looking at the weather, it drastically changed overnight and we're expecting snow on the 15th, which is kind of crazy. But if we go to Lockhart State Park on the 13th, this Saturday, we will be doing an iNaturalist bingo hike, and the sign up is posted for that. It should be. And it's not too far away, about 45 minutes out. We will carpool under COVID regulations, of course, as well, and while we're out there. But we might do a little volunteer project for them as well as hike. It should just be in the afternoon. And Valentine's Day, I meant to take off this Rio Vista cleanup. Ignore that for right now. That was tentative. I don't think it'll work out anymore. But then Wednesday, we are going to hold an extra chapter meeting with Dr. Sarah Fritz, wildlife biology faculty professor at the university. She'll be presenting, there she is. She'll be presenting her experience in graduate school, PhD, and her work now and what she's done, and also presenting our certified wildlife biologist program through the Wildlife Society. And the 20th, to be announced, we might have a project going on with the Texas Wildlife Association down the road from us here in between San Marcos and New Braunfels. And then the 21st will be our first time out to our Adopt a Spot at Rio Vista. Rio Vista is the very popular tubing area here in town. And we'll just be picking up trash and snorkeling in the water. You can find more information about that. I will post it. I'm pretty sure the sign up should be there as well. Third chapter meeting will be the 24th. We'll be meeting with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And then the conference will occur the 24th through the 26th during the day and some in the evenings. They have not sent out the official itinerary, I think, but you can always go find out more information through the Wildlife Society Texas chapter just by Googling that. And there should be more up there and how to register and everything. I can send out an email to all the members to make sure that you know exactly what it's about, but I'll also present it here in a second. For March, for March, our fourth chapter meeting will be on the 10th, and we are meeting with TPWD. And as well as the 12th and the 13th is a Bighorn Society project, building water guzzlers in West Texas. It's not affiliated with our society. I just want to share it to you all because anyone and everyone is allowed to go and volunteer and help. You just have to make the trek out to West Texas, which is about a 8 to 9 hour drive. And there's hotels in the area. There's more information about it there. There's a small group of people from Texas State that I know are going. I myself am going to go. And then there's plenty of camping to do while you're in West Texas because it'll be spring break right after that as well. So again, not affiliated with the society. There's all the information you need on the sign up, or if you just look up Bighorn Society Project, the last day to sign up for them is March 1st. And the 24th of March, fifth chapter meeting on sustainability with Dr. Randy Simpson. He is Dr. Randy Simpson's daughter. He's our past Wildlife Society chapter advisor. So we're honored that she's coming to talk with us about that. This will be like sustainable living, just tips and tricks, anything that maybe we haven't heard of yet. And Chaparral Wildlife Management Area camping, the 26th through the 28th. I haven't posted the sign up for that yet. I'll wait until we get into like maybe the last week of February so that people can get a chance to sign up and take off work or know if they officially can, go so they don't take a spot that's taking someone else's chances. And again, for most of these signups, it is going to be maxed at about 10 people. We've been working with the student organization council at the school to make sure that we don't go over capacity. It's hard to tell because we'll be outdoors most of the time. So we're trying to gauge what's a good capacity for being outdoors and close proximity with everyone while still practicing all the safety protocols. So it will be capped at 10 usually. And I'm gonna make Annalisa here, our treasurer, or give her the remote to talk about our treasurer report. Give me one sec.
Hi guys, my name is Annalisa Martinez. I am the treasurer of the Wildlife Society. So
I think you should be set.
Is it the one on my computer?
Yeah. Are you able to click? No.
No.
Okay, I can click for you.
If you do it, that's fine. Sorry, I'm looking up and down because my computer camera isn't working. But anyway, this is just our treasurer report so far. So far, we have 19 members already that have paid, and then some of them are actually new members as well. So congratulations, and give yourselves a pat on the back for the new members. So to pay your dues, we have a Venmo and a PayPal. Those are just the QR codes for it, just so you don't have to be hunting us down and trying to hand us money. So yeah, if y'all want to take a picture of that, just for later on. And I also get, sometimes I get questions, where do the $10 dues go? So we have little bullet points. So it could be future scholarships that we have for the Wildlife Society members. We also use them for campsites or entrance fees for the campsites. Also for most active member awards. So if you're as competitive as I am, when I wasn't an officer, I, was one of the most active members. So definitely do that. Also, we use them for food for various events, hospitality for conference, and then hospitality for chapter meeting speakers, merchandise, craft supplies, and then shootouts for fundraising. I don't think I'm missing anything.
No, you're good. Yeah, so for we have a skeet shooting fundraiser annually. We haven't been able to hold it for the past 2 years now. We aren't going to hold it this year, I don't think. We could do something in place of it, but again, the pandemic is putting some pressure on us. But so we've had people ask in the past, this is why we made this. Where do your $10 dues go? We just want you to know that they are being put right back into your use. You're going to be benefited through the society with all of these things. We have merchandise for sale. We do usually book hotels for chapter meeting speakers that come from outside of town, and that is when we are meeting in person. So that will start up eventually again, and hospitality for conferences. We work with the biology department as well to get most of y'all funded to go. Everyone who is on our Quiz Bowl team and competes with us will be covered usually. So we work with them about that. But just every penny counts for us. And we just want to give it all back to y'all through these things. Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah, there's also questions on the chat. How do we sign up for events? So you just go on the calendar, and I'm pretty sure you just click it, and then it'll pop up as, to join, right?
Yeah, there should be. So I don't have all the signups posted yet. I have all the signups for February, maybe the first couple of weeks into March. You should just be able to click. I haven't seen it in y'all's view in a while, But if you'll have any more trouble after that, just click on the calendar, click on Canvas page, Wildlife Society, and then in the bottom right corner, there should be a button to click on our calendar, and then flip through there, and it should have a different type of toggle icon rather than just an event posted to the calendar. But let me know if in the group me if you'll have any troubles. And if you aren't in the group me, we'll get you added. Also, to stay in touch with us, we regularly use the Facebook account and our Instagram account. And then we just made a Etsy account to start selling merchandise through there. It should be up and running. If y'all want to go take that a look and do a test run, that could help us actually. And Annalisa, as well as Courtney, will be packaging those out for y'all. And we also started a YouTube page so that we can post all of our recorded meetings through there. So all you have to do is search Texas State Wildlife Society on Facebook and YouTube, and that's how you'll find us. For the annual conference, we just wanted to let you all know that we completed this mega big application, like in dedication to our Wildlife Society. The officer team works on this every single year. It's an option, but we work for it every single year. It's an application that has objectives, and they want for you to share all of the events and efforts that you've had throughout the past calendar year. Anything that has to do with serving the Wildlife Society's mission statement. Usually, our application that we turn in every year is over 50 pages long in a Word document that we whip up. We talk about every single event in great detail. We talk about members' efforts. We talk about other society online efforts. There's pictures. It's a mega file, and we want to get that shown to all of you. So I'm going to figure out a way to post it either to a Google Doc, or I'm going to post it to the Canvas site, but our Canvas site is losing storage because we have so much supplemental information to share with you all. But if you want to show that to your parents, or if you want to show that to your family members, or if you want to see what everything we've been involved in the past couple of years, as well as if you're a reoccurring member, that could be a good reminder with everything to put on your resume if you're missing anything, and how to explain things or describe things in interviews. So we will get that out to all of y'all. We are very proud of it. And it's blood, sweat, and tears working on that thing. But we're glad to do it every single year. And this is what the conferences have looked at like in the past years. That was of 2020 to the left. We usually bring about 30 to 40 people from Texas State. It'll be random faculty, and then various faculty, and then our Quiz Bowl team, which, like I said before, is usually funded through our biology department. And we'll meet up with all different student chapters of the Wildlife Society throughout the state of Texas. They'll all come together for one meeting. We won Student Chapter of the Year back in 2019. And that is from the application that we turned in. They thought our application and our work served the Wildlife Society's mission statement best in the year of 2019. And that's a huge accomplishment. Texas State University hasn't won that award since, I could be wrong, but it's been about 8 years or so. Again, a big accomplishment. So for this year, it is virtual. And it's going to be, like I said, the 24th through the 26th. The workshops are from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Yes, that's during school times, but typically a lot of people in their wildlife classes, faculty will understand if you do want to attend those different workshops, because usually we'll leave on either a Wednesday or a Thursday when they're in person, and we'll be missing class for the rest of those weeks. Just because this is such a big opportunity for all of the members to gain information that comes year round. So it's $35 for a member of the Wildlife Society, and a non-member $55. But there will be online workshops that you can sign up for. There's going to be a trivia pub, just something fun to do in place of Quiz Bowl. There's professional development, like ways for you to meet various wildlife biologists across the state of Texas, nonprofit organizations, state agencies, sometimes federal agencies, and then there will be award ceremonies. So another award ceremony like Student Chapter of the Year, or in past years, they've done art and photo contests, but they have not asked yet if they're going to do that. So they haven't asked for submissions. If they do, I can share that with all of you. So potential to be on Zoom with near 1,500 members. That is a stretch, but usually that's what we have in person. It's a large group. The Education Outreach Committee is something we've had for about a year. Seth, are you on? Would you be able to talk a little bit about?
I am. Give me 1 second, just real quick.
We started committees in the society so that members can have a chance to get more involved, and it's more flexible with your school schedule. Say you can't attend every single event we have. We ask that you are available for bi-weekly meetings, brief meetings, that you're a paying member and you just have a passion for educational outreach, wildlife, and the environment.
Yeah, and some of the stuff we've done in the past is we put together a trick or tweet event for some of the local kids here in San Marcos, where we actually had specimens that they could come check out while they're getting candy, all safely under COVID guidelines. And this semester, we want to lead charge on our adopt a spot and cleaning it up, get our plaque there, and make that Texas State, Texas State Wildlife Society proud. And we want to, throw some events this semester too. So if you want to join, feel free. Yeah, it'll be really fun.
Yeah. So we are currently working on facilitating some supplemental material for the city schools. A lot of teachers have expressed interest in some just workshop kind of ethic we have, or presenting specimens if that could happen. And then also just planning more education outreach related events with other organizations like farmers markets, or just little science fairs is something that we've been missing out on for the past year due to the pandemic. And Kiana, are you on?
Yeah, I'm on.
If you just want to mention a couple things about the domestic beetle colony, Kiana is our leader.
Yeah. So domestic beetles, if you don't know, are beetles that feed on decomposing meat and just decomposing matter. So we use them, and they're really popular everywhere to be used for skeleton preparation. So we are in the process of starting the colony, and we're going to be using them to clean off our specimens for the Texas State Wildlife Society for our native specimen collection. So we're in the works of getting everything put together, but we are going to have a team of volunteers helping us pretty much on a daily basis. It's going to be super easy, just giving them water and food and making sure they're okay. So if you're interested in volunteering, we'll need a few people, and you can. We have a group me. We might go over some group me's later, but if not, you can feel free to shoot me a chat in the chat box.
Yeah, so this is what the current colony looks like to the right. I know it's sad. It's a sad little tank, but eventually they are going to sprout into a very large colony. We have 750 of them right now, and we have 750 more coming. So hopefully after 30-ish days, there will be even multiples of all of them. And if you can see beyond the tank there, that is a deep freezer. It's not working, but it's a deep freezer that we will eventually put all of them into once they're a larger colony. And then you'll be doing duties outside of that. So this is how well they can clean skulls. And that's something we're looking forward to expand our specimen collection, like she mentioned. But yeah, if you're interested in that, all of these committees that I'm mentioning, there's one more committee after this. All these committees I'm mentioning, I will send an email like I did during the first week with all of the group me links and just more informational things about each committee before signing up that you might want to read. And then you can just join the group me's and then we'll get you started through there. And there's a raptor rehabilitation facility out in Lockhart. You'll be doing some independent work. Absolutely no experience is required. You do need personal transportation. So it's about a 45-minute drive. Feeding birds of prey accordingly and the upkeep of their enclosures and any infestations if it does occur. But again, you don't have to be experienced to do this. You can see these guys up close and personal. There's some birds that are residents there, and then the other birds are some that are brought in after being hit by a car or just being obstructed by something. So Sally De La Housey, who runs the facility, it's on her property, but there's just a bunch of different enclosures in her front yard that she's basically just dedicated the small amount of land that she does have to these birds and dedicated her life, really. She's done this for a very long time. And she's had our members come out there and help her for a very long time. So we still need a lot of help with these guys. We need just weekly schedules made and that you can commit to those weekly schedules. And there's a whole sign up portal that you can find once you get into the group me. I want to talk about our participation point system. We do this for fun. It's completely up to you if you want to be qualified for the most active member awards. So these are those two things on the left and right, photos of Kate Underwood and Sean McCants. They won last semester, and so did Seth Ross. But we usually give away a gift basket with a bunch of Cabela's goodies, or in past years, we've just done Cabela's gift cards of like large sum amounts. And there's a first, second, and third place every semester. You get points for attending any chapter meeting, quiz bowl practices. We won't have those. But one day volunteer events are a point, paying your membership dues, field notebook entry, and you can text any of the officers. All of our phone numbers are posted on the homepage of the Canvas site. Feel free to text, call, email, literally any of us anytime, even if you just want to go on a hike, even if you just need help with a class, even if you need help with a suggestion of a professor, or if you need help with making a field notebook entry, for example, or carpooling, just anything at all. We are always available on our phones and we want to be available to you all. But we camp overnight, so you'll get one day a point, and then after the first day, 2 points plus an extra point for every day. And then iNaturalist, if you have not downloaded the iNaturalist app before, it's a great way to get to know your plant species or animal species, bird species. You can post anything there. You can post scat and they'll tell you where it's from. There's wildlife biologists from all over the app in the area or just wherever, and they'll be answering your pictures to tell you what it is. And that's not including our bingo hikes because we will be using iNaturalist through that. And then raptor volunteering, we will also add dermestid beetle volunteering, and we can add education outreach volunteering if that's something y'all want as well. And then also keep this in mind because we will use the participation point system in fall semesters for our deer capture event, which is a helicopter net gun survey of white-tailed deer and data collection. And we do that annually. We did not get to do it the past 2 years, but I'm assuming it could happen in fall if everything sorts itself out with the pandemic. But also for this semester, I want to talk about a prescribed burn opportunity that we have. And Josh is also going to fill us in on a couple details. But we are going to be using the participation point system for this opportunity. It's late April and only 5 members will get the chance to go. And we would like for y'all to compete for those spots because this is a high intensity level kind of work. And it'll be out in Ozona, Texas, which is a bit of a drive. But here's a couple photos from the past years. Josh has volunteered with them a countless amount of times. But Josh, can you tell us a little bit about prescribed burns if they don't know? You're muted.
Sorry. So This prescribed burn will take place in the Seven Oaks Ranch, is named there in Ozona, Texas, which is west of the Trans-Pecos, or I guess at the start of the Trans-Pecos ecoregion. And I guess Texas State students have been affiliated with this piece of property with the Walker family. And as of 2020, they received the TPWD Lone Star Land Stewardship Award for being really great stewards of the land. It's around 5,000 or so acres of their property, and it's been passed down from generation to generation in the Walker family. And actually, our past president, which is now a Texas State alumni, Sonia Duran, she stumbled upon them through emails and just reaching out, and invited some of the Texas State students to come and help out with one of their burns. And they're fairly new to this still. I'd say they've had probably at least 10 to 11 burns throughout their history at the ranch. So they're still learning this technique and method in managing their property. But as of right now, they told us that they're doing a bunch more workshops. They want to reach out to more universities. They've had San Angelo State, Tarleton students, and even us Texas State students on their property. So they're more than willing to help us learn more about this type of method and managing large amounts of properties like this. And they're great people overall. Really well-rounded members of conservation, and have, I guess, treated us as if we were their own kids. So they're great people to know. And if you're trying to make connections and networks with other, I guess, professionals in the wildlife field, this is definitely an opportunity worthwhile.
And it won't be the only opportunity. We will probably get to know them much better and get the chance potentially to do this every spring semester. So we will have a big annual event spring semester and a big annual event in the fall. But if that doesn't work out, we still have other prescribed burn opportunities that have happened in the past. So if you don't get a chance to be part of this, you can in the future. And also, I would start Googling prescribed burn practices in your area, because frankly, there's a lot of ranches in Texas that will use this kind of practice. And they've asked for recruiting just through a simple Facebook message board to us before. So just keep your eye out for that kind of thing if you're interested in doing so and interested in doing this kind of work.
Yeah.
Really quickly, I'm going to mention a couple of changes that we made to our Texas State Wildlife Society Constitution. It was just a bunch of things that we had meant to add, or things that we felt should be added. And we do have to do a little vote on it after this. I'll just have everyone put a thumbs up on their emojis. I think you can do it through Zoom, or if you can't, you can just say yay or nay through the chat. I'll just run through these real quick. We want for membership criteria to be all members are required to pay $10 dues per semester and to be active in all events, committees, camping, conference, and overnight events. They may attend meetings without paying, they may also bring whomever they want to the meetings without paying. Voting criteria: if officer elections take place during the final chapter meeting of the semester, then the officers may request for only paying members to vote. In the exception of officer elections taking place during the first chapter meeting of the semester, all non-paying members may vote. Officer elections are subject to change during pandemic protocol. And I won't read all of this, but members' duties and privileges is y'all receive access to the Canvas page and all updates via email. You have access to GroupMe and social media to receive updates. You're allowed to participate in semester camping if you pay dues. You're allowed to try out for Quiz Bowl team if you pay dues. You're allowed to run for officer positions if you pay dues. You're allowed to join a committee if you pay dues, and vote at meetings whether or not they have paid dues. See article, the one previous. And establishment of officers. Officers are established per election, and the election is held if the current officer graduates or steps down. If none of the officers graduate or step down within 2 semesters, then an election will take place after the year term, which are those 2 semesters. The candidate running for president must have been a previous officer, and they must attend all meetings except in the case of extenuating circumstances, and you must be able to attend the majority of chapter events. We wanted to add a pandemic protocol, basically just saying that we hope that you will follow, stay up to date with the Center for Disease Control, CDC guidelines, and that you will follow the Student Organization Council's guidelines, SOC. Also continue to communicate with the society advisor if members do not comply. Okay, so now we will vote in just a second when I go back to the gallery view of everyone. Or Josh, you could look at the gallery for me. Real quickly. No, I wanted to go back. Okay, now I'm looking at everyone. In the chat box, can you say yay or nay to all of the above articles or put your thumbs up, please? And if you're confused, the Constitution has been with the society since the society started. Thank you, Dr. Walter. And this is just something we prime and update every semester if need be. Okay. I don't see any thumbs down.
Yeah, same
Josh
bunch
hasn't
of
got
thumbs up.
yet.
Yeah, same bunch of thumbs up and yays.
Okay. Okay, we can move on. So with that, well, everybody welcome Ryan Tate and Lynn Westover from VETPAW, Veterans Empowered to Protect African Wildlife. And
Alrighty.
Josh, like to say a couple introductory.
Sure. So we want to welcome Mr. Ryan Tate. He is currently the founder and the president of VETPAW. VETPAW meaning Veterans Empowered to Protect African Wildlife. So in high school, Ryan sat in English class and watched in horror as terrorists took down the World Trade Center and Pentagon. This gave him a strong urge to fight on the front lines, and he knew the Marines would provide him with an opportunity to do just that. He signed his enlistment papers at age 16, received his high school diploma early, and skipped high school graduation to go to Parris Island in 2003, where he earned the title United States Marine. As an infantryman, Ryan participated in some of the most intense battles of the Iraq War. He earned awards for combat valor and the titles of Marine of the Year and Non-Commissioned Officer of the Year. His service took him to Southeast Asia to train foreign militaries and assist in counter-piracy operations. Ryan says, being a Marine allowed me to see the best and the worst of humanity. The contrast is quite humbling, and I wouldn't trade my experiences for anything in the world. After leaving the Marine Corps, Ryan continued his service to our nation with the U.S. Department of State, where he served on protected details for high-profile diplomats, both foreign and domestic. After five years with State, Ryan was exposed to the atrocities of poaching in Africa and the damage that the illegal international wildlife trade was having on developing communities in Africa. After an exploratory trip at the invitation of East African governments, he realized that combat veterans were perfectly suited to train and assist park rangers in their first against poachers. In 2014, Ryan resigned from the State Department and VETPAW was born. Now, introducing Lynn Westover Jr. He is currently the Director of Operations at VETPAW. And so Lynn has 20 years of experience in intelligence and counterterrorism with 12 years in USMC Special Operations, Force Recon, Scout Sniper. Lynn has 5 combat tours, Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, and served as a formal school instructor, master instructor, and curriculum developer. One of the first Marines to participate in the Combat Hunter program, Lynn ultimately became an instructor for Combat Hunter, ASAT, SOFSAT, and ITSAT. Lynn is also a team member and evaluator for unnamed covert surveillance and counter surveillance asymmetric operations. Lynn Westover is the other partner / co-founder of SLC Squared, which is a service-connected disabled veteran-owned small business whose mission is to positively impact law enforcement and the community it serves through innovative training, dynamic approaches to education, in keeping with the needs and challenges of the 21st century law enforcement professional. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Ryan and Lynn Westover.
Thanks, Josh. Really appreciate it. And next time I do something like this, I'm going to leave Lynn's bio out because it sounds way cooler than mine.
No problem.
What's your favorite color, Lynn? You didn't put that in there. Anyways, thanks for having me and having us. We really appreciate it. And honestly, talking to, young adults that have life goals of getting into conservation and dedicating their lives to conservation. And I think it's the most meaningful thing that we do. You're the people that we really want to talk to. I'll talk to anybody about our mission, but you guys are honestly, I look up to you for choosing to go into these careers that you're about to take on. So I've got a quick video that I'm just going to show. It'll give you a little rundown, kind of what we do, and then we'll jump into just an easy slideshow. The slideshow is very basic. It's not going to have a ton of information in it. I think slideshows are boring. Sorry to any professors that are on here. But I just think that it's better just to hear it from somebody, and I'm open to dialogue and conversation. So we'll get through that and then open the floor for any questions, any topics that you want to discuss. Nothing is off limits. If it is, the only thing that we don't discuss is how many veterans we have on the ground and how many animals that we protect in our headquarter reserve. Those are off limits. So I'll just leave that there. But how do I go about, there's a screen share.
So you should be all set. There might be a big green button that says share screen somewhere.
I see that now. All right, so stop me immediately if the volume is too loud for any reason.
Oh no, okay, you're good for right now.
Okay.
All right, we see your screen.
All right.
We don't hear the volume though.
Yeah, I don't think it's giving you sound, Ryan.
There's no sound?
Yeah, I think it's because Zoom doesn't play nice with Mac when it comes to
there it goes. Okay,
sharing this.
no worries. Well,
do you hear
If you-
sound on your computer?
yeah, I hear it. I hear it.
Ryan, what might actually be helpful is just use that as like B-roll, and maybe you can talk about some of the significant things as it's rolling through that.
Yeah, we can do
it's not
that.
ideal, but at least it gives them some visual.
Sure.
You can also, I've had to do this a few times. You can also, if you have a mic and headset, you can put the mic in the headset and it'll play it through the speakers.
I can try. Let me try one more thing here real quick.
Also, on the Zoom toolbar, when you're sharing, you can select to share your computer sound.
Ah, there it is.
Way better option from the young person.
Got this all down.
Okay, let's figure that out. Well, first, I gotta show active speaker volume. Yeah, this Zoom thing is rough for me.
No worries.
Okay, do you want to just, oh, there it goes. There we go. Okay, so now what do? You go to, what did she say there?
What you would probably first select microphone.
Ah, got it. Let me know if this works. Let's see.
So it's actually when you're sharing your screen, the
Oh.
floating toolbar in the Zoom window will have like an I don't know if it's 3 dots, but it's like on the right hand side, and you click that, and then there should be a drop down that says share computer sound, if you want to do it that way.
Okay. You tell me if you see that little, you see it anywhere? Is it this?
No, so like
I
the
didn't think
toolbar
so.
is actually just on your screen.
Oh, right here. Gotcha. You see it anywhere there?
No.
Okay, no worries. Well, we can just jump into
I have
slideshow.
I pulled up Vimeo on my computer and I can see if it's working for me.
Sure.
You let me know which video to click on. I don't know if I saw the
Um,
most recent one though.
Here you go. I will send it in the chat here.
Oh, sure. Yeah, copy and paste your URL and I could.
You guys are killing me with Zoom.
Sorry about that.
It's your fault, Josh.
Yeah, it probably is.
Yeah, I can't figure this out. The chat just disappeared. There it is. There it is. There you go. Try that.
Okay.
And then the password is conservation. Just lowercase.
Enter your password. Cool. Didn't know you could put passwords.
I didn't set that up because clearly I can't figure out Zoom. So
Okay. All right. Do y'all see it?
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Let's try this.
Let's try this.
High-stakes war against trafficking of something worth more than gold, cocaine, even diamonds. The coveted horn of the endangered rhino, part of a black market controlled by transnational criminal networks.
In the last 50 years, black rhino numbers have dropped from 70,000 to 5,500. Country's elephant population has halved from 4,000 to 2,000.
This is not just a battle between conservationists and poachers, but terrorists as well.
A single rhino horn can fetch up to $250,000 on the black market. Most of the money is pocketed by criminal networks that smuggle the horn all over the world.
If we don't do anything now, we'll lose both elephants and rhinos within 10 years. Veterans empowered to protect African wildlife. We train, assist, and advise park rangers in counter poaching operations.
Very clear the purpose of why we are here, to advise, train, and assist our African counterpart.
My hope is that I can transfer some of my tactics and techniques to make their fight more sustainable.
We hear that you're the best of the best, so we wanted to exchange knowledge with you.
I have no desire to get to shoot a poacher. I'd rather nobody ever tries anything, but if they do, they know they're gonna have to deal with guys like us. Some of the most dangerous people on the planet are now protecting these animals they're trying to get to.
Like, we're now Marines. Yeah.
We're all highly trained, experienced veterans.
We're here to train rangers and make you better.
Trevor is a part of the troop. Once I moved and saw how passionate he was about VETPAW. Right then and there, I decided, it's something I want to be a part of. Phil is a air rescueman in the Air Force Special
Yeah, this is just a quick video before the presentation.
Next,
This is the guy that the guys that are here. Yeah. Well, they're not here.
weapons, tactics. That doesn't translate.
Josh has been working with him or something.
VETPAW gives me an opportunity to build into something that has deeply into me.
The biggest thing I was missing when I got out of the military was the camaraderie. Obviously, to get that out here
gives me a sense of purpose again that I didn't really have.
We all believe in this cause wholeheartedly. Fortunately, we have to do it, but it's what we're prepared to do.
Anybody who understands the sheer magnitude of what we did out here would be proud.
Our world's about to lose this species, so yeah, it's heartbreaking, really.
This gentleman's supposed to be a level 5. A level 5 is a kingpin level, which means that he has money to facilitate and to initiate transactions.
The biggest thing that makes me angry is seeing somebody hurt something that's defenseless.
We want to see these communities succeed too, and give them a chance to benefit from this wildlife and show them that this wildlife is their heritage and it does affect their well-being.
At the end of the day, these are their animals. animals. This is their heritage. They should really have a stake in the protection of it.
You captured a middleman. I sat him down and I said, hey, I know that you're trying to provide for your children right now, but in reality, you're destroying their future. When I came back to him the next day, he literally looked at me and said, I'm going to take you to every home of a poacher that I know of. And he did it.
You have a Bronze Star for Valor right here. You have Purple Hearts in this room. I'm a U.S. Marine, man. I got too much pride to lose.
Our guys, you can't correct them. They are here to do purpose. Their purpose is pure.
This is definitely the coolest thing I've ever done in my life. The fact that these beautiful beasts are being slaughtered for nothing is just heartbreaking.
Those animals are our lives now. Go ahead and cross that line in the sand. We'll fight for those animals just like we fight for our brothers.
Awesome. So that should be it on that. Sorry about the volume, but thank you, Amanda, for covering down.
Yeah, no problem.
Let's see here. All right, now I can share my screen. Share. Oops.
Everyone's trying to give a round of applause for the video, but you can't hear it.
Thanks. Yeah, so that video, we're a lot more than that video portrays, and we'll get into that. You know, a lot of people look at us as a counter poaching organization, but we're much more than that. I actually, we're working to fix that brand and that image. We're a conservation group. We've come a long way in the past 7 years, 8 years since I started this organization, and I can confidently say now we are a conservation group. We're taking veterans who have these amazing skills and not just putting them out to train rangers, but actually getting them involved in conservation. And it's pretty special. I'm just going to run through a couple slides, and Lynn, you can jump in at any time. And as I said, you know, if you've got questions, just write them down, and let's have an open dialogue and Q&A after the slideshow. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Cool. Okay, so the situation right now, if you're not familiar with poaching numbers in Africa, it's estimated that 100 elephants are slaughtered every day by poachers. And some people experts estimate that in 15 years, wild elephants could be wiped off the face of the earth. Every 8 hours, a rhino is gunned down for its horn. It's a pretty nasty thing that happens with any poaching, but specifically rhinos. It's a sad situation. The numbers with elephants, the current population with elephants is 400,000 in estimation. I believe we were around 300,000, but thanks to efforts by governments, the population has risen to 400,000. Black rhinos were sitting at 5,300 to 5,600 left in the wild. VETPAW currently protects some of those as well. In 1970, the black rhino population had over 70,000 in the wild. So white rhinos were sitting at 17,000 to 19,000. Thanks to solid efforts by governments and NGOs, we've been able to get that population back on the rise. There's other species that we protect as well throughout Africa. Lions, there's less than 20,000 lions left. That's insane. 95% of their range has disappeared over the past 100 years. I mean, think about that. They have 5% left of the land that they used to inhabitate. Pangolin is the most trafficked animal in the world. You've all probably seen some of the coverage of pangolin scales in the trade in China and Southeast Asia recently. And if you don't know what a pangolin looks like, it's basically an armadillo with scales and with armor. It's such an adorable animal. I mean, to put it frankly. So there might be a couple images in here that are a little graphic. I'll get them down quick, so make sure you're not chewing food, or give everybody a quick second. All right, 1, 2, 3. So the story of VETPAW started with imagery similar to this. I'm going to go up so that nobody has to stare at that. But when I was serving with the U.S. Department of State, and I have cats, so if you see cats trying to jump on my lap, I'm not, messing around. It's go away. So when I served with the U.S. Department of State, it was a Sunday evening. I was getting ready to go to bed. It was like 10 o'clock at night. I was watching CNN. Anthony Bourdain's Parts Unknown. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that show that he used to host. But I watched the show, and the show ended, and all of a sudden this show came up about what the royal family was doing with the Tusk Trust Foundation in Africa to help conserve wildlife. And I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm not tired. I'll watch it. And I'm the type of person, I was already in animal welfare with domestic cats and dogs. I would use my nice DSLR camera, because hobby's a passion of mine, to go to local shelters and take nice pictures of the animals to help the adoption rate. I had 2 cats and a 125-pound Rottweiler that I adopted from rescues in my tiny, like 600 square foot New York City apartment. And so there was no more room to adopt animals. So I used my photography. So anyways, that was the extent of what I did for animals. And if I was on social media and I would see, an image of an animal being abused, I would immediately cut away from it, unfollow the account, because if I can't control it, I know it exists. I just don't want to see it if I can't do anything about it. So I started watching this show on CNN, and this, I wasn't expecting to see what I saw, but the first thing that I saw was an elephant laid out on a road in Africa. Its entire face was cut off. There's no eyes, no mouth. The trunk was separated from the body. It's a famous picture. You can probably Google it if you're into that. But the next image that I saw were rangers that were dead, and they were laid out in a field. And there goes the second gut punch. And then the third one is what sealed the deal for me. Is I saw a rhino. She was darted with a tranquilizer that poachers got off of the black market. And the reason why they shot her with a tranquilizer is because it doesn't go bang like a gun. So rangers couldn't hear it. They weren't alerted that anything was going down. And so these poachers came in and they chopped through her flesh within 1 minute, took the horn, and they were gone. Well, that tranquilizer wore off, and this female rhino who had a calf nearby woke up, and she bled out. And this is all on film because the park staff found her when she woke up, missing her face, and they were trying to get to her. They couldn't get a veterinarian on site in time, and she bled out. She died a terrible death. And that basically, when I went to war, I took all of my PTSD and trauma and depression, and I shoved it in a jar. It's just like Will Ferrell says, it was a jar of glass emotions or whatever. And that rhino just took that jar and shattered it on the ground. I cried like a baby in bed for almost a week until my special agent in charge at the State Department called me. He said, "Hey man, you got to get back to work." I said, "Hey dude, but I saw this, and did you know that there's terrorist organizations poaching animals and using that money to kill people and this and that?" And he said, "Man, that's terrible, but really you got to come back to work or you're going to lose your job." So I went back to work. My mom thought I was nuts, but she was like, "You're not going to Africa. Just go talk to some people at the State Department and see if they know anything or how you can help." And so I did that, and that allowed me to connect with ambassadors to the United States from African nations. And that kind of started my journey. I had an assistant secretary of state, though, come to me, and she said, "Hey, you're stepping on toes. If you don't stop this little stunt you're pulling, you're not going to have your job on Monday." And this was a Friday. And so I came to work on Monday. And after 5 years in the State Department, I turned in my resignation papers. And as it said in my bio, VETPAW was born. I'll keep going through this slide, sorry. The problem is illegal poaching and trafficking of wildlife is a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's actually a top 5 international crime, and it's growing every day. You name it, somebody wants to consume it. And there's even theories that, and you guys are the biologists and the scientists here, so don't shoot me for this if I'm wrong, but there have been theories that coronavirus, COVID-19, could have come from wildlife and the illegal trade. That's yet to be proven, so we'll see. But there have been other viruses that have come from the illegal trade of wildlife. So it is a very, very important topic that affects all of us as humans. A lot of these groups get very desperate. They militarize their poachers. We've seen poachers utilize helicopters. We've seen them use drones, grenades, rockets to take out animals. Rebel groups get access to all kinds of things. These are the same groups that traffic drugs, arms, humans. They're all tied together. A criminal is a criminal at the end of the day. Post 9/11 veterans from across the globe with highly trained skills in anti-terrorism and counterinsurgency, committed to protect African wildlife, training park rangers and local police enforcement to combat illegal wildlife poaching and trafficking. A lot of people struggle, especially conservationists from Africa that have been doing this for many decades. They struggle to grasp how we can help. I think 20 years at war certainly equips us with the skills and experience and the mental, I guess, mindset to tackle this. The difference between someone who's been in the shoes of Lynn or myself is that when shots are fired, we don't freak out, run the other way, or we don't freak out and just start pulling the trigger in every direction. Our experiences has allowed us to understand that a poacher or a criminal or a terrorist is better alive than they are dead, and that we can utilize them for information, interview, and hopefully get to more terrorists or more poachers in this case before animals die. And Lynn, you can jump in if you want to add anything. Don't hesitate. Since VETPAW, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just like to add to that. That is a core component as to how the mentality within VETPAW and how we deal with things. We find it rather disingenuous for somebody to make a statement that they care about wildlife, or that they don't eat meat because of the environment and because of animals and so on and so forth. And then in the same breath, they'll go on social media and talk about poaching the poachers and hunting the hunters, and going even further into some of those aspects of the over militarization of whether it's rangers or over militarization of law enforcement. The fact is if you've ever had to pull a trigger on a human being, it is at that point in time in your life that you have an complete and total respect for human life. And so, I mean, I personally believe that you'd be a sociopath either way if you didn't care about animal wildlife and you had, you care about humans, but you do evil things to animals or vice versa. And have complete and total disregard for that, then yeah, that's a psychological definition for sociopath. So for us, we take that very seriously. We know what the second and third order ramifications of that are, and any individual that we bring into this carries that with them, along with, and we'll get into it in a little bit, but that's the same mindset that we take with regard to the training that we give to those rangers. It is a balancing act. You cannot have one without the other.
Thanks, Lynn. Since the inception of VETPAW, we have not had a single animal poached, and we're super proud of that. We've put in a lot of work. Our veterans are actually out on patrol right now as we're sitting here. They work their asses off to protect these animals, and not a single one of them would hesitate to give their life for an animal. Doesn't have to be a rhino or an elephant either. It's any animal out there. This is a very special mission to these men and women. VETPAW supports local law enforcement and rangers by providing equipment, logistics, training, and tactical firearms safety, de-escalation mitigation strategies, and intelligence-based operations support and operation advisement and assistance. So Equipping park rangers and local law enforcement to better plan their operations utilizing intelligence is super important. A lot of times these ranger teams, no matter where they are in Africa, they're just saying, you know, we didn't patrol over there recently. Let's hit that. It's aiming and praying, it's throwing darts in the dark, and that's not how this works. By utilizing intelligence and putting together a storyboard of the operation at hand, we can increase the chances of catching someone and obviously mitigating any potential incursions. Again, intelligence gathering for local law enforcement is super important. We've assisted in pangolin operations, elephant poaching operations, rhino poaching operations, and it's all intelligence based. And we'll get into some of that here shortly. The biggest threat, in my opinion, is when you guys think of, and anybody can answer this, the first thing that you think of, maybe the first few things that you think of when you think of Africa, what do you think of? Lion King, what else? You think of a safari, right? So who the hell wants to go to Africa and stare at a field full of impalas? Nobody. You know what I mean? We can go to the national parks here and look at deer. The challenge is that the tourism sector in Africa, the ecotourism section or sector specifically, while it provides a lot of jobs and income and you know, feeds some economies, it's still a relatively untapped industry. I would say that from studies that I've read, it's only hitting about 20% of its potential. And so these impoverished communities that are around wildlife have a lot of opportunity in the future to create jobs and drive income into their communities, but it's all going to disappear if the animals are gone and the wildlife's gone. That one's pretty self-explanatory. I think we kind of already hit that anyways. Point is that we're super skilled, so remember that. So a big part of what we do, we have our headquarters reserve in the Eastern Cape of South Africa, but we're full-time on that. So we have our own populations of animals. It's a huge reserve, and I'll tell you guys more about it later. I hope you all come and visit because it's amazing. But we send training teams to other reserves. We first send out an exploratory team to simply go out for 14 to 30 days, and they live the life of a ranger and a conservationist on this new reserve. They observe everything they do, live the day-to-day. They go out and talk to stakeholders in the village, the elders, locals. They cover every square kilometer within the reserve, just outside of the reserve, and they find the biggest vulnerabilities in that reserve. And then we come back, we tailor a training evolution and then implement that over the following months. So it's not just, hey, here we are, we're here to help and do it our way. We really want to make this effective. And by the way, even though Lynn has an American flag on his shirt right now, none of our guys go to Africa. Men and women go to Africa with American flags on their stuff. We're not Americans here to lead the way, follow me to freedom type of BS. We're here to empower natives to do it themselves. Improving livelihoods of the communities is huge. I'm not sure, has anybody heard of the One Health approach to conservation? Should, right? Yep. So meaning that all life is equal. We're all part of the same ecosystem, and we truly believe that. So improving the lives of the local villagers is hugely important to us, and it's where our greatest success comes from. These are the people who, even if they don't realize it, depend on this wildlife. So we create women's co-ops to provide the women of the village with new sources of income for their families. That's great because the women previously, a lot of times just stayed back in the village to care for the youth, to care for the sick, the elderly, while the men go off to the big cities for weeks on end to look for work. But now, especially during COVID-19 and the pandemic, the women are the ones pulling in the money. So they have a louder voice, and they have more say in the village, and it's super cool. They understand that, hey, without VETPAW being here, they wouldn't have this new income, and now they have a new reason to protect the wildlife, and we are their 911 call if anybody, any outsider comes in asking questions about the animals. So yeah, I'm really excited about what we do in our future plans with the communities. Oops. Youth outreach in villages by improving school facilities, resources, and supplies, and using our veterans to educate school students on the importance of their wildlife. This one's big because, believe it or not, a lot of these village kids don't know anything about these animals. They know that they're around in the area. They don't understand, you know, the behavior patterns, how cool these animals are. And so we as veterans and as foreigners can come in, we're a little bit more interesting than the typical conservationists that come in from South Africa. And so we can connect with these kids. We come in the camo uniforms and all that and sit them down and talk. We've taken kids out on game viewing drives into the reserve to see the animals firsthand. And kids could be 10 years old or 20 years old. It's their first time seeing, you know, a rhino in nature, even though they live, you know, a couple hundred yards from the reserve. So that's been hugely beneficial. So this one is going to put some things into perspective. This is going to show you how dangerous this job is. So back in 2014, VETPAW developed Tanzania's first wildlife crimes task force, which was an intelligence-based task force. We didn't go out patrolling. We specifically collected intelligence from ranger teams that have gathered it for us, and also through undercover operations. I personally have been undercover to do ivory buys, rhino horn buys from criminal syndicates, unarmed as well, and it's an adrenaline rush. But we take that information and then we go do hits with park rangers in this task force, which consists of 30 park rangers. We go specifically to the village and we target that village based on the intelligence that we gathered. So in 2014, I had to leave Tanzania because of an emergency. I almost lost my leg because of a spider bite. I didn't even feel it bite me. I woke up and I had these black and blue and pink lines growing up my leg. And I went to the hospital in Tanzania and they said, well, the only way that we can help you is if we cut your leg off. Otherwise, you got to go back to the States. So I said, all right, I guess I'm going back to the States. And I had just been contacted by the US government to say that, hey, there's some not so good people that are looking for you. You may want to leave the country. So I went back to the States, got myself fixed. And the guy that took my place a couple months later was assassinated in Dar es Salaam because of the amazing impact that the Wildlife Crimes Task Force is. So these are very, very nasty people. He left behind a family. He left behind a staff. I mean, it was heartbreaking. So these are nasty people. These aren't always just desperate people trying to provide for their kids. Oops. There we go. So another big success of this task force is in the Ruaha ecosystem, which consists of 3 parks. At one point, and right now it's close. They may not still have this title, but it used to have the most dense population of elephants in all of Africa. However, 18,000 elephants disappeared in 1 year. Can we say that they're all poaching? Probably not. Can we say that a majority of them were from poachers? Absolutely. And in 36 hours, our team with the Wildlife Crimes Task Force dismantled the entire network that was responsible for the deaths of these elephants. So the proof is in the pudding. There's the results right there. This stuff works. The skills that veterans have, they translate like no other. And I mean, I think it's pretty friggin' awesome that we got some justice for those poor animals. That's just a cool rhino picture. Those are our rhinos, by the way. Operation Rhino Shield was in Limpopo, the Limpopo province of South Africa. It was a 3-year total operation. One thing that we try to do in VETPAW is all of our training is pro bono. We don't charge reserves a dime. They just got to give us a place to live and get us around on the reserve. The reason that we do that is so that they can take that money that they would usually spend for training and spend it elsewhere to improve their reserve, such as buying more land to expand the reserve. There's a lot of open cattle land there that used to be inhabited by wildlife. Well, cattle farmers, due to no regulations or lack of regulations, just let their cattle roam anywhere. It was unhealthy habits for the ecosystem. And so that land, the wildlife on that land disappeared, and then communities took it over. Well, they're not using it. So what if we lease it off of you, or what if we buy it off of you? Us meaning the reserve. And so that's what that money goes back to. They don't have to spend it on security. They have to spend it to better the reserve and try to get that land back to where it used to be. So we're pretty proud of the fact that we were able to expand a 40,000 acre reserve into a 225,000 acre sanctuary. During that operation, we reintroduced a black rhino population into a region that they disappeared from 80 years ago due to poaching, and also obviously habitat loss, which is the #1 reason for extinction in Africa of species. And it's since increased 50%. So that's pretty cool. Lots of babies. We assisted South Africa Police Services and international law enforcement agencies in a transnational informant network to stem the movement of poaching networks across country borders. Our biggest one had to do with pangolin. We assisted in the operation. We basically laid the groundwork and let them do it. Big challenge is they brought us the pangolins after they confiscated them. And so we had to put them somewhere to quarantine them. Well, they picked my bedroom, and they peed everywhere, and it permanently smells like pangolin pee. Like, my wife won't even sleep in the room. So don't put a pangolin in your room ever. But those pangolins are now living back in the wild. It's pretty cool. Train and advise the SAPS, the South African Police Services Provincial Counterterrorism Task Force on conducting operations and raids on illegal wildlife networks. This is a pretty big one. We work heavily with SAPS. Everything that we do in country is at the discretion of local law enforcement. Everything we do is legal. A lot of people struggle to understand, how can these American guys just go into South Africa and do what they do? Everything we do is legal. We're there at the invitation of the government. They had asked us to get involved with training their counterterrorism task force. It doesn't align with our values. Well, counterterrorism should align with everybody's, but as an organization, our mission is wildlife. However, this goes to show you it's all tied together. They said, well, these groups, these terror groups that we need training for, are the same ones that are trafficking these animals. And so that's one of the reasons that we rescued those pangolins as well. So developed a rhino research program that SANS Parks, South African National Parks, now considers the top data collecting program in all of South Africa. If you want to do something cool in Africa, just come out with us, because we do have the #1 monitoring program. I will go on a limb and say, in Africa, there's nobody that collects more data on rhinos than our veterans and our staff. It is incredible. You're the only ones on the entire reserve. It's not like one of these national parks where you're getting into traffic jams or anything like that. It's just incredible. So you can get involved in research and help us a lot with that. You all bring a lot to the table. Not all of our veterans have degrees in conservation or wildlife management, biology. So if you're interested, I'll give you the information later. Just contact us, because we do internships, PhD opportunities, things like that. And it's a very intimate setting, and it's a huge park. Lynn, I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, if you just, instead of me taking control of the screen or whatever as we go through, I'll have you click. But basically, so I'll just hit some wave tops here. So conducting an open source intelligence report or survey is, you're looking at basically what pops up when you Google somebody. So it's a little bit more in depth than that. You start finding yourself going down rabbit holes, and it starts to begin to feel like Alice in Wonderland. But you do start to, as we call it, find out who's who in the zoo. So I think you guys would probably enjoy that play on words. But in reality, and I'll get into a little bit more as far as like what exactly human terrain mapping and behavior pattern recognition is. But people are essentially animals, and they have the same behavior patterns and the same dopamine effect when it comes to their file folders and how Synapse works. And it really boils down to their 4 Fs. And so when you are able to kind of link that stuff together, you'll start seeing things typically web-based. In country, we have something called the Bush Telegraph. It's same thing as like the whole knitting circle or sewing circle, and it is amazing how you haven't seen a bar on your cell phone for 70, 80 miles, but information will travel at the speed of Mach Jesus when you're out there. So it's just really understanding the data collection, and when it comes to gathering intelligence on individuals, you want to make sure you utilize some type of PACE plan. And what I mean by that is we look for primary, alternate, contingent, and emergent forms of information collection as well as communication. So that's the big thing that we would see going over there is individuals would come out even from the military like, oh, I was Special Forces, Green Beret, whatever, telling us about how they were, a door gunner on the space shuttle. And I could go out and start running sources and things like that. If you don't vet a source when you go out and do intelligence collection and information collection, you can find yourself chopped up into little pieces stacked up right next to the animals that you were trying to protect. So it takes it very seriously. And it kind of reminds me, I don't know if you guys are movie buffs at all, but if you ever watch the original Point Break, not the remixed one, because that one sucks. Go see the original with my man Swayze and Keanu Reeves. But there's a part in there where the main FBI agent talks about it's good database collection, it's good police work, and that's what this is. So when we conduct those open source intelligence reports, we identify what the actual legitimate threats are in an area, and then we will give a reserve a third-party security assessment. So we give it to them as if, and again, they don't pay for any of this, but we give it to them as if they were to go pay somebody to say, hey, I want a security assessment. I want our security plan audited. And then for them, as with what happened with the Black Rhino expansion project, when Sand Parks, Eastern Cape Parks, and the World Wildlife Foundation saw the level of information that was included in that, in the situational awareness and understanding of that operational area, then they felt much more comfortable about choosing that specific location to put those species. Because and Ryan could go into more depth, I'm sure, but when you're talking about moving a large pachyderm like that, and in a lot of cases you're sling loading them from a helicopter, you're traveling them long distances, as robust as they are, as the old saying goes, tough as rhino skin. That animal, when it gets put under anesthesia, is at an extreme threat. Both of just like coming out of anesthesia, as I'm sure some of you know if you're involved with veterinary work and things like that, but even for several days really after they come out of it, they're at a disadvantage. Their senses are dulled, and that would be a most opportune time for somebody to decide to try to take a crack at them. And it's not like you can conceal it, the fact that it just happened, especially when you have to, in order to get these animals to or from where they're at, you're sling loading it from a helicopter. So it's like essentially shooting a firework up in the air and say, hey, if you want to take a crack at one, come over here. So that's kind of a overall big picture view of how important that information is. And I think most of you would probably understand and appreciate that, because that's what conservation is. That's what ecological and biological understanding of an environment is it's really understanding database analysis. I don't know if you want to cut to the next one, Ryan. and one more. So you probably heard me mention human terrain mapping and behavior pattern recognition.
This is, by the way, sorry to cut you off, Lynn. This is super interesting stuff. And Lynn is, well, VETPAW, with the help of Lynn, is the only organization that teaches this in Africa. This is some pretty intense stuff. It's very cool.
Right, and thank you, Ryan, for that. I do appreciate that. And I'm sorry that this slide ended up being so wordy. So I'm going to hit the wave tops on this and kind of give you a so what. But that 2-paragraph kind of blurb right there, as far as to what human terrain mapping behavior pattern recognition is, that is really just scratching the surface. So it is a multidisciplined approach to understanding specifics within human behavior and how to be able to catalog that and organize it real time, meaning like right here, right now. And I'll throw some numbers downrange at you just so you understand what I actually mean by real time. 86.3% of humans, mostly adult learners, are visual learners. That is the majority of the sense that we use for processing information and understanding our environment. So you're being bombarded visually by 10 quadrillion bits of information per second. Both of your eyes, if you have 2 fully functioning working eyes, both of your eyes are capable of sending 72,000 bits of information per second back to your brain through your perceptual cortex, through your visual cortex. That's 36,000 bits of information per second between each eye. It's going upside down and backwards through your brain, first hitting your limbic system, which is only concerned about your survival, much the same as limbic systems in other animals, and it compares it into the hippocampus, which is your mental Rolodex, against something that it's seen before heuristically and prototypically. And so very quickly it's deciding feed, fight, fornicate, or flee. And if it doesn't match any one of those, then it goes into the long-term memory banks and you go, oh, I saw that once on National Geographic. It didn't turn out too well for that guy. Your amygdala responds, and your amygdala is obviously centered around it's your ADT system for your brain, right? It uses the senses to help determine threat, and it's sending out 10 to 50,000 responses for every one of those inputs that are coming in, mainly visually, but the biggest one that your amygdala responds to actually is your sense of smell, right? And then from there, your amygdala will activate your hypothalamus, and that will cause your body to heat up, and then you start to feel warmth around your neck, typically. So if you've ever been out to a bar somewhere and some guys decide that they want to get rowdy about it, they want to say something with their chest, and you say, oh, that dude's hot under the collar. And just like that, that's happening. The average human reaction time is 3/4 of a second at 0 feet, 0 meters. And so even like looking at something like shooting, the average shooter, the fastest draw time that they're capable of is about 1.5 seconds. And that's why you'll see things like the 21-foot rule or 21-foot drill, where they talk about, based on that average human reaction time, a human being's capability to be able to match deadly force with deadly force within that time space distance, and that equates out to about 21 feet. So the reason why I bring all that up and throw all those numbers at you, and that's again just scratching the surface, is really when you say, okay, we're using advanced critical thinking and understanding in human behavior patterns to observe, articulate, and document decisions that we make based on our knowledge, skills, and abilities, is that is situational awareness and understanding. It's the ability to see several exits ahead as you're driving down that highway at 80 miles an hour and seeing those brake lights pop up and knowing like, hey, I better change lanes. That's that process that's going on within your brain. And your prefrontal cortex, which is your neocortex, so this part right here, that's where all those executive thought decisions are coming from. But you don't really have as much control over your body as you think. So we get into some of those human behavior patterns, and in other words, we teach people how to use a tactical field decision-making model, and we incorporate intelligence-based policing with that. And so if you can hit the next one for me, Ryan, where all this came from is what this is. Because this stuff has been around for a long time. You could go and read books, whether by Dave Grossman or Malcolm Gladwell or Gavin DeBecker and Associates. You can go and check out the FBI Behavioral Sciences Division. They've released several white papers into human behavior, and there's a lot of different subject matter experts in their field, PhDs, who are just like you guys at one point in time, not even thinking that they would ever get a PhD. But where this actually came about was when in the Marine Corps, the Combat Hunter Limited Objective experiment was developed, and it was developed under the Advanced Research Sciences Program, or DARPA, as well as JIATO for counter IED threat. And a real long story short in that is we were dealing with amazing threats in Iraq specifically, called the Juba Sniper, and the problem was people watched too much TV. And they thought it was this dude hitting people from 1,200 meters away, and it looked like a 12-foot tall Dolph Lundgren second place runner-up lookalike contest winner with a dragon tattoo. And the reality was, it was guys who were literally around the corner from us, and they were hiding in plain sight. And that's the first premise that we had to understand from the information gained from that program was, while not all criminals will rise to the level of a terrorist with regard to behavior, all terrorists are criminals. And so the criminal behavior is criminal behavior. A bad guy in Angola is the same as a bad guy in Alaska, is the same as a bad guy in Afghanistan. The behaviors are the same. And when you're far enough away where it wouldn't even matter if you did understand the language, you can see the behavior, and the behavior looks the same. And so that's kind of where that all took root. And interestingly enough, it was developed by law enforcement officers, subject matter experts in human intelligence and in law enforcement work. And there was also actually a lot of there's a few conservationists and some big game hunters and other individuals that understood human animal behavior, because the behavior is the same, that also contributed to this, as well as like learning things like tracking and so on and so forth within this course. And so we took the lessons learned from that, and that's what my business is. I teach this for law enforcement. That's why I'm here in Indiana right now, getting ready to put on a class. But when Ryan and I met, and my first experience with VETPAW was actually just helping out with some training. I came out to do some firearms training, some tracking skills, and also human behavior pattern recognition. And we tailor-made these programs for VETPAW to specifically address the needs and challenges that that not only the organization faced, but then we geared it into a way and geared it into a method that these rangers could actually utilize it. And so you're seeing some of the stats on there as far as like how we developed this, but things I'll point in your direction. The curriculum that we developed was utilizing best practices developed by international law enforcement training organizations such as IATLIS, which is the International Association for Directors of Law Enforcement Standards and Training, and ILETA, which is the International Law Enforcement Educators and Trainers Association. So this isn't just something that we dreamed up and put on a cocktail napkin one night after having a few Miller Lights or Negro Modelo or whatever cerveza you guys have. I don't know what you guys like to drink down where you're at in Texas, but I like Pacifico. Pacifico's good. So if you ever see me somewhere, hit me up with Pacifico. But it wasn't like we were drinking one night and put this stuff down. We actually put a measured approach to this and what really works. And it boils back down to, first and foremost, understanding policing. Secondly, realizing that when it comes to policing, that the way that you treat people day to day has a direct impact to really your survival in that type of operational situation, in that operational area. And to me, it was exactly the same. The way I treated people when I walked down the street in Afghanistan determined whether I was leaving that village under my own power, or if I was going to go home in a dust-off flight in a flag-draped coffin. And I know, like, to a lot of people, they see, specifically within U.S. law enforcement, they feel like there's some issues there and some major challenges. And I would be the first to tell you that, yeah, there are some, but don't believe everything, first of all, that you see on the news, because they don't necessarily get it right. But if you think it's bad here in the States, I invite you to go to Nigeria if you've never been. and we'll talk about the discrepancies in law enforcement training and or behavior. And the reality is when you look at industry, specifically in the U.S., where there's over 650,000 law enforcement officers, and the amount of interactions, if you just say one of those officers has 10 to 15 interactions a day, which is usually much, much more than that, it's probably in upwards of 40 to 50. That's millions of interactions that happen every day where everybody walks away. Nobody gets hurt. There's no use of force. There's no deadly force. And so the principles that were discovered and detailed within that, those are the exact same principles that we apply. And it was really funny and interesting because it actually made us a little bit angry when we went into Africa and we were teaching these rangers some of these skills and some of this information, because on face value, it's like, wow, that's way over the average person's head. I never went to college. I have a North Carolina public education, and I spent 12 years in the United States Marine Corps. I guarantee you that I'm not the smartest man in the world. And if I can figure it out, anybody else can figure it out and utilize it and be effective with it. And we certainly felt the same way about the Rangers that we train. And so we hold them to a higher standard and a higher expectation to what they're capable of. And you know what? They do it. And they do an amazing job at it. And they're building good rapport with their local communities. And at the end of the day, for us, for me and my business partner, we have a saying. These are human problems. They require human solutions, hence human behavior. But as Ryan, I'm going to steal your thunder, Ryan. But as he said before, endangered wildlife, poaching, the criminal networks and the cartels and everything that revolves around that is not an animal problem. It's a people problem. So we have to, if we want to solve people problems, we have to use people solutions. So that's kind of a quick just overview. We've taken a very serious approach, and it's hard too to talk about these things. You would probably look around like on the interwebs or social media. Unless you have a captive audience like this, it's really hard to sit people down and talk to them about nerd stuff, as I'm sure you guys can appreciate. And for them to understand something is like, for example, you guys were talking about the beetles and how you use them so that then you can study the skeletal structures of animals and clean off the bones. Like, how could you ever think that somebody would be interested or care about the livelihood of a beetle? But the fact that there's a ripple effect that occurs and it causes a ripple in the ecosystem, that beetle is every bit as significant as the rhinoceros that leaves the dung on the ground where the beetle inhabits. I mean, I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but there's a gentleman by the name of Dr. Sam Wasser who works at the Conservation and Biology Department in Washington State. Go Huskies for those of you that like that or whatever. But that dude's life is all about dung. And he will sit there and talk to you for 3 hours about animal dung. The interesting thing about him, for those of you that don't know, is he did lead some of the programs in the dung studies for elephants. And then through some of that research, he was also able to work with dentists and be able to figure out ways where they could pull DNA from elephant tusks from the ivory to be able to track the elephants. So it could be the simplest, stupidest little thing in the world to somebody else, like a beetle. It could be a game changer for a whole ecology. So I think for me, just as a practitioner of education, and I would have never thought, if you would have talked to 18-year-old Lynn Westover, Private Schmuckatelli, who then one day found himself walking in history in the grounds of the castle of King Nebuchadnezzar in the Fertile Crescent of Iraq, in between the Tigris and Euphrates, and understood that, like, hey, according to the books, what was written, this is where Jesus walked through, and this is where supposedly the Garden of Eden was. And oh, by the way, it wasn't an apple because the biology of that area didn't support that. It was more than likely a pomegranate. Like, all of those things in the work that you guys do, like, I just want to leave it with that. Like, it is relevant, and it's amazing how relevant, like, the conservation as well is for us when it comes to even utilizing security practices. So And especially as well for you guys, like one of the things that we do is we also talk about these things when we have the opportunity to, for our guests that come out for conservation experiences. We've also, especially in my business, we've done things where we've prepared people for traveling abroad, and that's just something to keep in mind. Is you guys are all students of animal behavior. Well, people are animals too, and there may be some time well worth spent kind of just making sure every once in a while you're pulling yourself out of your phone and looking up and out, especially when you get the chance to go do whatever internships you do or go abroad and do the things that you want to do, because it would be a shame to have, you know, something because of people get in the way of you guys finishing your education out, or in whatever case. So that's kind of my little spiel on that. That I'm also available to answer any further questions on it, but that's kind of for us the big deal with it. And obviously we're passionate about what it is that we do.
Len, Steve Jobs dropped out of college, so you still have a chance, man. Let's see. Yep, here it is. So this is, I mean, you can obviously read the text, but really impact law enforcement and the communities that serve through innovative training and dynamic approach to education. We leverage over 50 years of defense intelligence and law enforcement experience for supported unit mission accomplishment. And then finally, just a really cool picture of me, and I have control here, so you have to look at it.
I have the microphone and you have to listen to everything I have to say.
Funny story, Lynn and I, just real quick, I'll share it with you before we move on. When I had hired Lynn to come out and train some of my veterans before they went out for an operation in Africa, I immediately met Lynn and was like, I just kind of, I was irritated because I thought I knew him from somewhere. I couldn't figure it out. He had this beard, and when he doesn't have that beard, he's a baby face. He's got these pretty blue eyes. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I couldn't figure it out. 2 days go by. We're sitting there drinking a beer after a long day of shooting on the range. And finally it dawns on me. And I'm getting to the point where like I'm starting to hate this guy because I can't figure out who he is. I was being a jerk. And so I said to him, I said, hey, Lynn, were you what year did you go through Scout Sniper School? And it was 2005, right, Lynn? Or maybe no, 2006, 0506. Anyways.
Yeah, it was 05.
So anyways, I said, do you remember by chance a really cold day when you were soaking wet? And Scout Snipers, if they tell you, if you're in school, if they tell you, hey, go get chow, you run to the chow hall, you have to run in place the whole time, and you look pretty stupid. No offense, Lynn. And I said, do you remember a really cold day in a chow hall and you were soaking wet? It was so cold outside, it should have been snowing like a long time ago, but it was actually raining. And he said, yeah. And I said, you remember a guy clearing the chow hall line of a bunch of privates in front of you? Because I said, make a hole, basically is what I said. It was a little more graphic than that. And it was Lynn when he was in his training, and this was 10 years previously, and we had crossed paths. It's just a wild story that I like to tell. But I guess I can get rid of this. Stop. Do you want to take back over?
Well, you know, it's funny to wrap that, like, interestingly enough, it was also during that time, and when I first met Ryan, and because of my work with VETPAW, that I ended up meeting my wife. So I owe Ryan that for my marital bliss, and as well the fact that I have, you know, a 9-month-old daughter who's so close to taking off and running. But I think for any one of us, you know, why we do this, I want a few things for my daughter. I want her to grow up in a world where she doesn't, she's, whether it's a woman or if I end up having a little boy, whatever, like have the self-confidence to know that they can do whatever they want to do if they put their mind to it, and that they can be safe while doing it, and they can live in that kind of a world. But then the other thing along with that is, it's so cool to be able to tell my daughter, as I'm reading her, Lulu is a rhino, that these things actually exist. And one of these days I'm going to go take her to see it. And if we don't keep doing what it is we doing, both in academia, in security, nonprofit organizations like VETPAW, so on and so forth, if we don't keep it up, and if we don't, take an honest effort to make it happen, there's a good chance even right now it's tenuous. Like, I may not be able to get my daughter out there in time to be able to see these species before they go away. So for me, that's what puts it all in perspective of why all of this is important.
I wanted to touch on one other thing before I open the floor for any questions, but I had spoken about reintroducing black rhinos into an area that they hadn't been in over 50 years. A unique thing that we found very quickly with that, when I was on the phone with Josh the other day, he mentioned flora fauna quite a few times. So this relates to that. But shortly after we reintroduced those black rhinos into this region, which had elephants and white rhinos already, it was a relatively diverse ecosystem already. So because they didn't have black rhinos, the leafy plants that black rhinos eat just overtook everything. And so there was less grass on the ground for white rhinos and other antelope species to eat, especially in times of drought. And so as soon as those black rhinos came in, they just feasted. I mean, it was incredible. They ate and ate and ate, and it cleared those trees back to where they should be in a healthy ecosystem, which allowed sunlight to get to the ground and allowed the grass to grow more when the rain came in. So it kind of relates to the beetle situation that we were talking about. This ecosystem as a whole, we do rely on each species, and unfortunately, when we lose a species, it takes some time, but we definitely feel the impact of it. And so we as humans, we're supposed to be as the most, I guess I can say the most intelligent species on the planet. We have to be stewards of this planet and not dominators of it. And we have to start respecting the ecosystem and thinking of ourselves as just another species on the planet Earth. And if we don't change that, we will destroy everything that is beautiful on this planet. So I think that's about it. Amanda, I'm gonna open it up. If anybody has any questions, ask away. I hope you enjoyed it. We do have an awesome experience program, and I'll send it over to Josh, the information to send to you guys, but we're always open to internships, PhD students, researchers, anything you need to do. We have a zoological exchange program with the Zoo Tampa, which we partnered with to give zoologists and conservationists on their staff an opportunity to come see the species that they work with in their natural habitat. And we're working with a couple of universities on bringing students out. So Amanda, it's all yours though.
Okay, thank you so much. Usually we would do a round of applause and you would hear it, but thank you so much. If y'all want to ask questions in the chat box, I can also answer them. And Ryan and Lynn, if y'all did notice the attendance go down, everyone said a really nice message in the chat box to let you know that they thoroughly enjoyed their time and thank you for everything. I mean, that was so kind of them. They didn't have to do that. One message. I thought I saw a question earlier, but anyone else have a question for Ryan?
Question.
Sure.
I was just curious, it's pretty conspicuous to be walking around with a big ivory tusk. Are you finding new ways that people are trying to conceal and transport these in and out of the countries?
Sure. So that's a great question. We've seen all kinds of things. A lot of times a poacher will bury an ivory tusk, and then they'll come back and get it as night falls. A lot, especially in East Africa and Central Africa, a lot of the highways, major highway corridors are closed at night. Because the difference between South Africa, Zimbabwe, some places in Mozambique, is because humans have grown so much, they put fences around reserves to keep the animals in, keep the livestock safe, keep them off the roads, keep them away from people, because human wildlife interactions are some of the most deadly out there. I mean, it's a huge risk. But as you go north into East Africa, those highways are closed. So what they'll do is they'll bury the the rhino, or excuse me, the rhino horn or the tusk, and then they'll pay off a police officer or something like that so they can get a pass to ride on the road at night. Just to put it in perspective, I've been doing 140 kilometers with one of our guys on the highway at night, 2 o'clock in the morning, because we were doing an investigation, slammed on the brakes because there's a freaking elephant that you cannot see because they're so dark and it's black. There's no lights. Elephant right in the middle of the road, screeching halt. So that's why they close them. But so they'll bury it. They'll come back and get it. However, a lot of diplomats from places like Southeast Asia, like China consumes 90% of the world's ivory. I believe China has now taken over as the largest consumer of rhino horn. Vietnam is now second. So their diplomats will smuggle them out utilizing diplomatic pouches that are not searchable. It's illegal to search a diplomatic pouch. So we're working on a program with Colorado State University and some other NGOs to develop a nuclear rhino horn project where we can embed isotopes into a horn. It's a test phase. Not all rhinos will get it, at least in the beginning. And that way, if somebody were to smuggle out a rhino horn and in a diplomatic pouch, that diplomatic pouch will ping for radiation. And the only way you can search a diplomatic pouch is if it pings for radiation. So yeah, I mean, we've seen it there were some Chinese diplomats that smuggled it out on a official government yacht. It's crazy what they do. They'll take a car door apart, hide it in there, just like drugs coming across the border. It's pretty wild.
Thank you.
Hey guys, I apologize. Unfortunately, I'm on borrowed time here at the police station, and they're booting us out. But I just wanted to say really quick, I appreciate being invited into your guys' panel and your board, and it was just nice to get to talk about VETPAW and the work we're trying to do. So you guys are rad. So we hope to see. I hope to see you out there next time I'm out in Africa.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thanks, Lynn. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any more questions for Ryan?
I had sort of a comment question. So I do want to thank you. I do come from a military family. My uncle was stationed at Bragg for like 15 years. So that was kind of cool to hear about y'all being there. But thank you for giving veterans with these special combat skills like the opportunity to do something other than essentially becoming a mercenary.
Yeah.
But I know that you have your like informant system that you guys utilize with, I guess, some people you capture and then they kind of flip a bit. But do any of these poachers ever turn to then like want to pursue conservation?
That's a great question. So I don't know if you were on for the video, and if you weren't, and for those that did see, you might recall when I said that I spoke to a middleman and I said, hey, I know that by connecting poachers to, the big syndicates, you're making money to send your daughters to boarding school or just simply put food on the table. I said, but because Africans are very big on honor, there's outside of the United States, it seems like everybody, they just respect honor. It's a big deal. And I said, so while you're trying to provide for them now, you're destroying their future because of the tourism that these wildlife parks and the wildlife within them provides. And so he ended up giving us information on each, where each poacher lived, and we went in and got them. But there was more to that story. So I told him, I said, hey, listen, he said, well, what am I going to do for work if I don't do this? And I said, it's a good question. He said, can I work for you? And I said, oh, I don't know about that, but we can talk after we get this done. So what ended up happening is that I went to the judge and I vouched for him that he was cooperative. They gave him a lighter sentence and he ended up becoming a park ranger when he got out. He tried out, became a park ranger. So that's a success story. You don't always see it. As I said, not all poachers are poor villagers just trying to feed their family. Some of these people, a lot of them, depends on the region, are just bad people. There have been ranger teams that have been captured by poachers, tortured. There's a kingpin in Zimbabwe, actually Mozambique, that took an American vet and his wife in front of his wife and executed him. Like it's some nasty stuff. So it just depends on the situation, but that's something that we do as VETPAW is we take locals and build ranger teams for reserves. So guys that might have possibly poached at one point, chances are not likely that they did, but they may have considered poaching because they didn't have a job. Their unemployment rates over there are through the roof. I mean, Zimbabwe has like an 80%, something crazy like that. So, but if we're able to give them a job as a ranger, it's awesome. So it's a great question.
Okay, so
oh, go ahead.
I was just wondering, so y'all have, it seems like a lot of the positions that y'all have are just like, seems like a lot of combat veterans. I was wondering, like, so I'm a veteran, I did intelligence in the Army, geospatial intelligence, and I was just wondering, like, how that would, like, how I would apply that to the position with y'all.
Sure. So, well, first of all, take down my email. It's ryan@vetpaw.org. That's it. Shoot me your resume after and your information. Let's connect. But on our website, also go on there and just fill out the standard application and submit that. That way it's in the system. And then I'll go and flag it. But you don't have to be a combat veteran. We use the term combat veteran because a lot of our veterans are, but no, we take veterans from all. The ability to teach you what I need you to know and your ability to absorb that information and your passion for wildlife and an understanding for our mission is above everything else. You can be SEAL Team 2,000,064. I don't care. I don't care if you can do backflips in combat and hit people in the, square in the forehead. It's not what we do. We're about relationship building, supporting communities by preserving wildlife. So thank you for that question. Thank you for your service too, by the way. Don't ever say I was just the Army or whatever you said. That's ridiculous. I was just a Marine. So
I meant to say, like, more like y'all go on patrols and do your thing. It's more like oriented to people who have that really like infantry skill set. And I was asking for like other skill sets that could be used besides just like, the basic warrior tasking battlefields of the Army or something like that. Like the actual intelligence side, or is there anything y'all do besides, just the patrols and all that?
Yeah, we utilize geospatial intelligence through BAE and some other programs. But yeah, no, we need analysts all the time. So absolutely, it's important.
Yeah.
We've had veterans from all skill sets. So
awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Ryan, I know when we were talking, you had mentioned an interesting study that you've seen, I guess, on the refuge that VETPAW works with, on, I guess, seizing the strategy of actually cutting the rhino's horn, because it was making it difficult for, I guess, females to identify males and trying to, I guess, have some type of relationship with them. Can you like explain about that and the findings on that?
Yeah, thanks, Josh. And I meant to bring that up in the presentation, so I'm glad that you remember that. One of the methods that specifically private reserves in South Africa are using, which unlike other regions or countries in Africa, South Africa, the private reserves actually kind of saved conservation. 90% of antelope, exotic antelope species, rare antelope species, were brought back to life in their regions because of private game farming. It's a big deal. And these are massive parks. They call them farms, but you're not going to like some petting zoo or, small nature park like you see here in the States. These things are massive. So one of the precautions and the methods that private reserves were using to make their rhinos less appealing to poachers was to remove the horn. So poachers typically just hack through the flesh and they're gone. Well, we can bring in a veterinary team. It's a pretty big team, and we can dart the rhino, put it down, and we can saw through the horn. It's the same as your fingernails. It's basically keratin. And we can remove that horn, and then we register it with the government. We keep it in a safe. Our reserve doesn't do that. Some of the reserves that we work with do that. But what we found is that the females are not mating as much because the males aren't able to bully them around as much without their horn. And so it's kind of a problem, and it scares me because I really truly believe when you start doing stuff like that, you're messing with the genetics of the species. And in time, that's going to mess up the behavior patterns, the mating patterns. It could really damage the species. Now, you all are more qualified than I am to as far as the biology of wildlife, but to me, it's just something seems I'm uncomfortable with it. But yeah, I mean, we brought in new bull rhinos, and they weren't mating with the females. They wanted to, but the females, nah, back off. You don't have a horn, so nothing you can do about it. But yeah, it was really interesting.
Yeah, and that's very devastating, especially for refuges where they don't have an operation organization like y'all to help them out. This is really their last line of defense in trying to protect these large mammals. So hearing something like that, where it's meant to be good and try to conserve the species, it has alternate effects, and that is really concerning. But I'm glad that there's research and word getting out about that type of stuff. So
Yeah, in everything we do, there's research involved,
Right.
and I would really love to speak with your board at some point about possibly getting you all involved with the research we do, because it's super important. We prioritize data collecting over everything else. We got to have data, and that's how you make a true change is by comparing and contrasting data. So
exactly.
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, I was wondering if anyone was thought about like a prosthetic type of horn after the actual one was taken off.
I have never ever thought of that. That is a really interesting idea, and one that I'm going to write down.
Courtney, now's your chance. Go do research on it.
There is, some of you may have already seen it, but there's some picture going around with an elephant with pink tusks and a horn that's pink, and they're saying that they're dyeing the horns pink. So we've actually experimented with dyeing the horn, although if you ever see that picture, it's not real. You definitely cannot dye an elephant's tusks because it is attached to membranes and their brain. But a rhino horn, we actually used to pump the horns on our headquarter reserve, on the rhinos that are on it, with a poisonous dye that would not go into the skin or affect the animal in any way. But if somebody were to consume it, it would make them sick. The UN had some issues with it because they said it's not humane. And I'm like, there's, how many billion of us on this planet and how many left of the species? I don't really care. But so they made us put on these signs on the reserve, like boundaries, that these horns are poisonous if you consume them. But yeah, there's a couple things that people are experimenting on, but I've never heard of that one. So I like where your head's at.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I was curious, you said you guys were working with a lot of the women and kind of empowering them to do stuff. I'm doing a little bit of a project on the Akashinga. I know it might be a different part of Africa. I didn't know if you had gotten to work with them or.
Are you talking about the IAPF's group?
The women rangers.
Yeah.
Like Zimbabwe. I didn't know if you work with them at all.
We don't work with IAPF. I know Damien well. He used to. When I worked for the State Department and learned about this, I used to fly him to the States to pioneer. I almost lost my job because of Damien Mander, which is okay because I resigned anyways. But great guy, great organization. Those women are heroes. They're awesome at what they do, and I know their elephant populations are exploding up there right now thanks to their work. So they have a lot to be proud of.
Yeah, thank you. No, I like the y'all's overarching idea of kind of redefining what it means to love an animal and take possession out of it and put more education out there.
Yeah, the involvement of the women is we bring in subject matter experts on making crafts and things like that. We teach them how to do it. We give them the material, and then once they produce what they're going to produce, whether it's pottery or we're going to have them do knife making soon. just little survival knives out of scrap metal, garbage metal, with some of the world's top knife makers. And so they have this new skill with metalworking, and we'll sell those knives for them, and all that money goes back to the community. It's pretty cool.
Cool, thanks. Nice.
Are you gonna sell those knives off your website?
We will, yes, we will at some point. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, as soon as COVID's done, I'm ready to go over there with the women's co-op is my bread and butter. It's my favorite thing in the world. These women are incredible. You really feel the impact. Like when I first started VETPAW, I just wanted to go Jason Bourne in the bush and just kick some poachers' asses. And then I found myself like just really embracing Africa. I mean, if you haven't been, it's addicting. Once it's in your blood, you can't get it out. I mean, I get chills thinking about it. It's so exciting, and just it'll blow you away.
Another thing, I know that you've mainly focused on like I guess like the illegal wildlife trade, and we've been talking a lot about elephants and rhinos, but I did watch a documentary a couple years ago called Virunga, and it focuses specifically on the mountain gorillas in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Like, have you guys done any work within that region or have any plans to?
We were supposed to be there in July, and then COVID happened. They actually just lost, I believe it was Virunga too. They actually lost eight rangers. They were gunned down by poachers. So it's pretty nasty up there. But yes, it's my dream to get up there and assist, because they desperately need any support that they can get. They're true heroes in conservation.
Yeah.
Well, I think that wraps up our night. Ryan, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll just leave you with this. I'd love to, every penny we get goes to On the Ground, and it's my goal to fundraise as much as I can so I can put as many veterans on the ground as possible. But the ultimate goal with VETPAW is that there is no VETPAW, because it means that veteran skills are being put to good use and animals aren't in danger. So thank you guys so much for your time. If anybody has anything, feel free to reach out to me at ryan@vetpaw.org, info@vetpaw.org. I'll get back to you. I hope to see you in Africa. And please go on social media at VETPAW on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever you use. And please give us a follow. We greatly appreciate it. But thank you for your time.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Touched many lives tonight.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a good night, everyone. I'll post this recording to our YouTube page. Share it with your family and friends, please.
Will do.